welcome to this Rugby League World Cup second round review. I'm your host, Super Saiyan Blue Lucario, so grab a cup of tea and join me as we dive into all the action from the second round of fixtures from the 2021 World Cup. First, Group A, starting with England versus France. England rotated the squad for around from game one, looking to try new combinations, try some test fringe players, just to see who will be best set for the knockout stages. And at first, the transition was seamless. They raced into an early 18-0 lead, Ryan Hall staking his claim for a starting spot with a quick brace before Luke Thompson scored a breakaway score. But France, to their credit, much improved in this World Cup, and the introduction of Sangare and Eloy Pellissier, they worked their way back into the game. Disruptive tactics were paying dividends, and England's shape began to falter. They began to lose their way a bit, and France started working their way back into the game, including two fairly soft tries, I think, for England to give away, but very smart play from the likes of Pellissier diving against some lax defence on the line, led us to an 18-12 scoreline at half-time, and it was anyone's game. Cue the changes in the second half and the introduction of Jack Welsby. From this point on, the game swung firmly back into England's favour after John Bateman leaved his way around the defence before a contentious and dubious pass. We're going to say line ball to be as politically neutral as possible here, but a bit of a contentious one to send Elliot Whitehead under the post before further scores put England seemingly out of sight. France did keep going, they kept trying and did get a deserved late consolation score, but the day belonged firmly to England in terms of the result. Now, on the whole, I think France will get a lot out of this. They competed more against England than they have done in years. They needed a step up from their performance against Greece, and they definitely got it. They'll take great confidence into their do-or-die fixture with Samoa next week. For England, it's job done. On to the quarterfinals, and looking ahead to the knockout stages where there will be increasing challenges as we go. My man of the match goes to Jack Welsby. The game turned drastically on its head after his introduction in the second half, and I think off the back of those changes, England looked a completely different side to which France had very little answer. The second game of Group A saw Samoa play Greece. This was expected to be a landslide, as you can say from the predictions and the result, it certainly was. Samoa needed a response after their hammering by England last week, a complete drubbing against England. They needed a response. They needed their key players, their star personnel to show up, and they did. They delivered a very powerful show, running in 13 tries. The forward pack were completely dominant from the off, and the Greeks just could not handle the pace of the outside backs, like Tim Laffey filling it in for the injured Tyrone May, and Brian Toto, absolutely unplayable at times. Jerome Luai showed his class. He showed the reason why he has been starting halfback for Penrith all the last few years, running a show, setting up numerous tries, and even getting one for himself for good measure. It wasn't perfect, though. It wasn't a perfect performance. The Greeks, to their credit, they kept trying. They struggled for yardage against the powerful pack, but off the back of a decent kicking game from Lachlan Ilias, kept turning the big sides around and getting out of their own half. They weren't fully penned in. It gave them a chance to try and get something out of the game, and they did with a phenomenal score. A kick over the top, deep inside their own half on the third tackle. Looked to be a bit outlandish, shall we say, but they needed to try something different. They didn't get the score off that play, but a quick play of the ball and another kick over the top straight away from dummy half led to a big breakaway down the right side from the centre before Lachlan Ilias on the support on the inside get a deserved score. There was a huge try-saver tackle from the fill-in fullback Mitzias, who did start the game on the wing, had to go back due to injury. It got the crowd roaring. A huge shot to deny a try. And They did deserve points on the board. I didn't think they would get over the line, but the unpredictability of their attack. Maybe they will score against every opposition. They certainly got a lot of fans during that game and in their game against France as well. But Samoa, a thoroughly deserved win, which takes them second in the group on points difference. My man of the match goes to Jerome Luai, who just completely ran the show, showing his class, which was sorely missing against England. Next, Group B, Australia versus Scotland, and this one was as one-sided as you could possibly get. 6 years ago, Scotland were capable of holding the Kiwis to a draw in the Four Nations, but there was never a hope of something similar here. Australia were dominant from minute one. Their pace, power, and skill on complete ruthless show. Josh Adokar scoring 4 of the Australians' 15 tries. Nathan Cleary and Cameron Munster dictated absolutely everything in attack, but what was most impressive about this performance was the relentless commitment to defence. Sure, they didn't have a lot to deal with in defence, but that's not the big key to take away. It was the speed of the defensive line. It didn't drop for 80 minutes. And that kind of defence will beat any side, let alone a side struggling for confidence and without key personnel that they've been able to call on before, like Scotland have. The most obvious statement of this is the fact that Scotland didn't get a single play the ball within 20 metres of the Australian line until 15 seconds to go in this game. And that is just speaks volumes of the Australian professionalism and ruthlessness and just desire and demand for perfection. My man of the match goes to Nathan Cleary. It was his debut for Australia. Clinical passing game, steered the Kangaroos around the park, and there was just no answer for him or any of the Australian players. You could pick practically anyone on the side as a man of the match there. Big props to Josh Adokar, who scored 4 tries, including the final try, which I encourage anyone to go back and watch. An incredulous offload to keep the ball in the field of play between the legs of his centre, which Adokar still had a lot of work to do to finish. A kick down the line and along the touchline, beating the fullback to the corner to dive over and score. An absolutely fantastic finish and one of the best of the World Cup so far. Up next, Italy versus Fiji. Now, this one I expected to be close. There was a quarter-final at stake. Italy were going in with a lot of confidence after turning over Scotland quite comprehensively. And the opening 5 minutes were end-to-end. It seemed like it was really game on and looked like it would be a very entertaining contest. However, a 6-minute spell saw Fiji get 3 back-to-back tries. They were 18 points up, and just from that point, never looked back. The Italians were their own worst enemy in this one. They were losing possession cheaply, giving away needless penalties as frustration built. And against a side with the power of Fiji, it's just criminal. The Fijian pack were ruthless. They were making 15, 20 yards per carry with bone-shuddering defense, huge hits all game. It just didn't look likely for an Italian comeback, despite the promise from the first round. They did get a late consolation from the, again, impressive Luke Mazen. He's one of the very few bright sparks for the Italians on a rather long afternoon. My man of the match goes to Api Coruscant. The hooker dictated absolutely everything for Fiji, and his command of dummy half was able to just dictate the momentum. The forward pack were able to build off the back of it and just took the game completely away from Italy, and they just couldn't live with him. And so that goes to my SSBL man of the match. Next to Group C. First of all, with New Zealand versus Jamaica. Now, this one was another expected big score. However, the circumstances of the score certainly weren't. From minute one, Jamaica showed they were here to play. Consistent short kickoffs causing a lot of problems for the Kiwis, actually threatened the line on several occasions. It seemed like a tactic to kick early in the tackle count behind the defense, but the execution was the one thing really letting them down. While in defense, they just couldn't live with the pace and the power of the Kiwis. Dean Watine Zalesniak having an absolute field day down Jamaica's left edge, which was ripped apart time and time and time again, able to hold them fairly well down the middle. However, as soon as the ball was exposed to the fringes out wide, there was nothing they could do, which is where the inexperience of the Jamaican domestic players were based. And you could see the step up in class between NRL standard internationals and the domestic competition of Jamaica. But they'll certainly take a learning experience from this, absolutely. The Reggae Warriors, however, they never gave up. And that was what earned so many fans, everyone urging them on. And every time there was a short kickoff, which, by the way, they won almost all of their short kickoffs, which is a big problem for New Zealand. Teams are going to look at this and see it as a weakness they can exploit. And they got their first ever World Cup try, deservedly so, at the death through Ben Jones-Bishop, after waiting for one of very few occasions to the last tackle, which was actually the shock tactic here. A kick over the top, not dealt with at the back, with Ben Jones-Bishop kicking on to dive over the line and earn the Reggae Warriors' first ever World Cup try, which was fitting in his 300th career appearance. He was one of the pioneers to get the game going in Jamaica way back for 2005. It's not been going that long, but it's a privilege to see how much progress has been made. As far as my man of the match goes today, it goes to DWZ himself. I struggle with the pronunciation of his name at times, so I'm just shortening it for this moment. He scored 4, and he was a threat every time he carried the ball, causing nightmarish problems. He even landed an acrobatic finish in the corner while with cramp in one leg. So, there we go. Now to Ireland versus Lebanon. Now, this is actually the first game that I've got wrong in this tournament for predicting the winner. I'll try and be balanced here, but it was a frustrating afternoon, to say the least. The game started fast. Both sides did look very sharp, making good ground forward. Despite the wet weather, they were playing expansive. For all the money, it looked like the close game we were expecting. A lot of early pressure on the Ireland line saw Lebanon get an early breakthrough, which actually did surprise me that the ref didn't go to the video for this one, because it looked to me, for all money, that Richie Myler did enough to hold the player up, preventing him from grabbing the ball before taking over the sideline. A very much closer call than some of the others that have gone to the video so far. I'd be interested to see what the decision would have been had that actually gone upstairs. But Lebanon did get the early score off the back of Lebanon taking full advantage of the new rule changes to the ball steal, where if a player peels off the tackle, despite a tackle being 2 or 3 on 1, and leaving just 1 remaining, a ball steal is allowed. I don't agree with the rule. I don't like the rule change, but it's playing within the rule system, and Lebanon taking advantage built continual pressure on the Irish line. Ireland, however, did find themselves very hard done by off the back, leading to 2 further scores for Lebanon, when at dummy half, by the rules of the game, you can attack the ball-carrying arm of the man at dummy half if you go around the ruck area. If you go through the ruck area, it's a penalty, but the Irish markers went around the ruck and attacked the arm, causing a drop ball. This is legal within the rules of the game, but both commentators, who really should not be given a game again, it was mind-blowing to hear them speak, and referee, I mean, they all make mistakes, right? But this led to frustrations being built for the Irish side. The pressure on them, they didn't rise to the occasion. High shots coming in, looking more for the big hits rather than actually playing the rugby. Some huge hits, and full credit to them, but some they were getting the timing wrong, and off the back of the ill discipline, Lebanon were finding easy meters going forward, and all the weight are against the Irish. Ireland did get a score just before half-time through Lewis Senior with an excellent finish in the corner, before a great bit of defence on the stroke of half-time, dragging a Lebanese winger out wide off the field, who then proceeded to take offence of this and start shoving the Irish players. Yet, both Lebanon and Ireland were punished, leading to 2 men getting sin-binned. I don't think the Irish player did anything wrong. He didn't even touch the player. He was just stood there. And for being shoved, got a yellow card. This didn't actually affect Ireland in the second half as they scored early off the back of another great break and another good finish for Lewis Senior. And it was game on. It really was. But the ill-disciplined problems of the first half didn't leave them. Growing frustrations at 50-50 calls going against them and Lebanon just not letting up on the pressure. Mitchell Moses clearly guiding the team around the park and the replacement halfback for Doehi doing much better job than I originally expected. Huge props to him. He did superb. His kicking game when he was given the chance, causing all manner of issues for Richie Myler with the high balls really swirling around in the wind. There was also a very cheap penalty given away by Ireland midway in the second half, which could easily see a suspension off the back of a cannonball tackle. I cannot condone the tackle itself. It was poorly timed. The aim has to be to tackle around the ankles and bring down, but the impact was in the back of the knees as a cannonball. No arguments for the penalty there. And Ireland they were their own worst enemy. A game that had the billing of going right down to the wire and deciding who goes out of the group, and they just weren't at the level needed to make the game the spectacle it deserved. The last time these two sides met, it was 16 apiece, and the hostilities of that day still echo true in this one, with certainly off the back of the Irish, a very physical game, brutal game at times. They needed to stay focused on the task. As much as you might dislike calls going against you in 50-50 situations, it's not the ref dropping the ball. It's not the ref missing tackles. You've got to focus on your own job. And unfortunately, Ireland they weren't at the standards needed. They did get a late try through Ed Chamberlain, but by then it was too little too late, and Lebanon ended up deserved winners. My man of the match, Mitchell Moses. His kicking game was ruthless, and off the back of the weight of possession marching downfield, made life very, very difficult for Ireland. Now to Group D, Tonga against Wales. And the Welsh were determined to flip the script today. For long periods of the first half, an upset really did look on the cards. A weight of possession on the Welsh line early. You thought the writing was on the wall, but it was continually turned away. Dynamic running from the outside backs, the Welsh were causing real problems to a very laboured Tongan side, none more so than Kyle Evans, who off the back of a huge hit on the Tongan centre, picked up the loose ball and burst through some lazy defence to go 40 metres and score. The Welsh were in front. However, they did look fragile at scrum defence, and a very soft try, a very well-worked pass out wide for Daniel Tupou to score in the corner saw Tonga right back in. And for 2 weeks in a row, 2 tries in 2 minutes right before half-time turned the game in Tonga's favour. Another score for Tupou and a try down the middle as well, certainly leading to Tonga to I would say an undeserved 16-6 halftime lead. Wales, they were a much better side than expected, and they were on top for large portions of it. But for small lapses in concentration, could well have been in front. An early score in the second half saw Tonga ease out in front, but there were clear signs that improvement is needed. It was very much a case of job done, barely, against mostly part-time opposition. They're not setting the alarm bells ringing for any of the other sides that may face them so far. They can improve. They must improve if they are to do anything in this competition. Man of the match for me, I'll give it to Daniel Tupou, who in my view was the only Tongan player who can hold their head high on that performance. The others really do need to step it up against better opposition, otherwise it's going to be an early exit in the quarterfinals. Final game of this round is Cook Islands against Papua New Guinea. This was expected to be a very physical game, and it proved to be just so. There was a lot of pressure on the PNG line from the Cooks early on, but just very little direction. A makeshift halfback pairing led to poor last tackle options, and they were effectively trying to batter through the defence like they tried against the Welsh. But to the Cummel's credit, they held firm. The Cooks relied on a penalty to open the scoring despite this wave of pressure. And you have to say that's a victory for the Commonwealth's defence. The fact that the Cooks did not have the confidence to get over. Then, off a poor last tackle option, again, the 20-meter restart, and I couldn't. It was, I don't know how to say this. The defense switched off completely at the 20-meter tap, and they just carved through and went length of the field to score out wide, with Ty to go in for the first try of the afternoon for the Cummels. Before PNG, they began to press advantage. They started to gain the yards, and their settled approach to the game, they took their chances when they came. A great offload close to the line before a very clever little run out wide from Labert saw the PNG extend their lead. And it looked like the score might start to open up at this one as PNG were really flowing forward. They were really starting to make headway through the Cooks' defence. However, Rugby League is a very funny game. Off the back of a bad high tackle and a yellow card to Mackenzie Yeh, the Cooks took full advantage of the numbers to slide the ball out wide and score in the corner to bring it back to a 2-point ball game at half time. The second half started with a bang, though. Right from the kickoff, Yeh, now back on the field, went straight through the defence and went 50 metres before eventually being pulled down by a solid tackle from the equally impressive Kayla Iro. However, the Cummels were fluid in their movement and led to a score just before the end of the set of 6, and it looked like game over. The Cummels, the Cooks did continue to try. They kept trying things, but the lack of direction, the lack of clinical nature in their attack, just saw them keep falling short. They were reliant on shock factor to get anything, and the Cummels, their structure, the quality of their halfbacks and their spine especially just proved too much. Further scores through Lamb and Ty again seemed to wrap up the victory. There was a late consolation from Anthony Gelling, but it wasn't enough to flip the script again, and the Cummels ended up comfortable winners in the end. Man of the match for me, Mackenzie Yeh. His physical nature led from the front. It caused the Cooks problems all day and laid the platform for the backs to do the job. So now we're on to round 3. In Group A, England play Greece, which should be a very big score for the host against will probably be a valiant Greek side, while Samoa play France with the quarterfinal place at stake. Samoa need to improve from last week, or there could well be an upset here, as it's anything to go, anyone's game. Group B, Australia face Italy, who need a giant killing if they're to stay in the competition, but will likely be swept aside by a very dominant Australia. Fiji are very likely to do the same in their game with Scotland and complete the quarterfinal lineup there from Group B. Group C, Ireland face New Zealand. It's hard to see anything but a Kiwi win. Hopefully the Irish will give them a tough day at the office and come with the right attitude this week in the game, unlike last time. While Lebanon are very likely to turn over Jamaica, but keep an eye out for the Jamaicans. Let's see what they bring to the table. If they can do the same as they did with New Zealand, there could be a few more points on the board there. While Group D, Tonga should have far too much for the Cook Islands, but a desperate side can bring a shock, and the quarterfinals are still anything to play for 3 sides in that group. PNG face Wales in a bid to secure the final quarterfinal spot, and unless there's a monumental upset there, it looks like the Commons will go through. But that's everything for this review. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been your host, Super Saiyan Blue Lucario. Let me know what you thought of the round in the comments down below. Let me know who you think will come out on top in round 3 as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, it's time for me to have a cup of tea.